You already know what's going on. What's going on? Jimmy Bones President. Today I want to talk about the Hydrasynth. You know my trusted Hydrasynth right here versus my Kurzweil. Let me hear a little bit. That's probably a little bit better. You know, Hydrasynth versus the Kurzweil. So a lot of people said that they're saying now that the Kurzweil is the '90s Hydrasynth. I don't know. I see what they're saying, as in it can make any type of synthesis in that type of way. The Hydrasynth is very versatile, very easy to use. You know, it gets really deep when you get into modulations and all that. Well, it's pretty easy to use. It's probably the easiest synth other than my Model D. It's probably the easiest synth to use to just get the sound out of it. I mean, the Roland is great too, though, but there's like a lot of things with this that people don't like, though. Hydrasynth is probably the most user-friendly synth that I have. Sounds good. The Kurzweil, despite what people say it being very complicated, it can be complex. But I think that anyone who's used software, if you use software in any type of way, I don't think the Kurzweil is complex. But the sound out of this is amazing. Is it the Hydrasynth to the '90s? I see what they're saying. You can put a bunch of oscillators, a bunch of effects, do a bunch of different things. You can't rearrange the routing on the Hydrasynth. You know, Hydrasynth starts with an oscillator, goes into the mutants, and then goes to the mixer, filter, envelope, LFO, so yada yada yada. Kurzweil, you can basically start and end at any different start point from that configuration I just said. You start with the oscillator, start with the pitch. It doesn't have mutants, so then it's that. And I think the mod matrix. I think it has a mod matrix. I'm not sure how good it is, but it's not as good as the Hydrasynth. But if it is, I'm pretty sure it was pretty what's the word, advanced for its time. But the Hydrasynth is a good synth. Kurzweil sounds a lot better. Then again, I do have the Hydrasynth Explorer, so I'm pretty sure that the sound might be a little bit thinner. Because I heard that the Hydrasynth Deluxe version, which would be the full size version of the Hydrasynth, I heard it has a dual engine, so it probably sounds a whole lot better when you think of it like that. And that's probably why I usually just use this Explorer version to lay on top of my JDXA, because the sound is a little thin, you know. Even when you get into the mixer and you do a couple things, the sound is still little on the thin side, in my opinion. Some people don't feel like that, and I think a lot of times when they're comparing this online, they're really talking about the deluxe version. And I can see how that's a game changer. You know, you have dual engines, it's multi-timbre, and you have the ribbon controller, you know. But the Kurzweil sounds amazing out the gate. Like, the samples on this are very high quality, even for the '90s that they are. You can hear a little bit of the age on the synth samples. A lot of the acoustic samples sound great even to this day, in my opinion. I think, you know, they probably sound a little bit dated, but you can still get done what you need to get done, especially if you're using any type of software, if you're layering, using effects and all that. You know, this has a bunch of effects. I think it has more effects than the Hydrasynth. Not really sure. I haven't done a comparison of the effects in my opinion, but a lot of people say that the Hydrasynth effects aren't all that. They alright, they get the job done. Kurzweil effects are pretty good. You know, the upgraded version, the K2500, actually had better effects though. Had a max of effects situation though. But yeah, I would say the best thing about this is that these do work great together, because this has polyphonic aftertouch, Hydrasynth, and Kurzweil reacts to polyphonic aftertouch. You know, but I see why they say at the time this was probably the Hydrasynth of its ever. Before they even thought about doing anything like the Hydrasynth, you know. They're both digital. They can be very complex. They're both, they fit with anything. Like this and the Roland JDXA sound great together. You know, and this and the Hydrasynth sound great together. This one with the MPC sounds great together. Shout out my MPC. The Wave State sounds great together. You know, the Yamaha RS7000, this sounds great together. The only thing I haven't found is a use for my Moog in this that sounds better than anything else. Probably, you know, if I layer some, you know, acoustics with the Moog and all that. But, you know, a lot of times this goes out of tune. That's annoying. So, you know, I'm actually trying to justify keeping this. I keep calling this a mode, the Model D, the Behringer Model D. I like to call it the mode because technically it is. It's a, what is it called? Emulation, but But yeah. What would I get if I didn't have it? What would I recommend? I would recommend, if you can get your hands on this, especially for the price I got it for, $200. Go ahead, unless you already got one or you don't have the space, or you have another, maybe a Yamaha Mod X or Mod Touch. You have any of those giant workstations? You don't want another one. I understand why you might not want this, but if you don't have a workstation already and you find this for a good price, this is definitely great. And if you sample, definitely get the sampler version because it does what it's supposed to do. Hydrasynth doesn't have a sampler in it. It doesn't have a sequencer. There's two things that is missing that this does have though. But it has emulants. Has the amazing mod matrix, and anything can be modulated. I'm not sure how that works on this. Put it in the comment section if it is. Let me know what's going on. The knobs, knob per function. A lot of the stuff you can do on this, you can do with knobs. Cut off, filter, renaissance, all that stuff is just knobs right here. A lot of this is a lot of menu diving. I would say when it comes to menu diving, this has the most menu diving out of all my synths that I have. And this and the wave state has the most menu diving out of all the synths I had, guaranteed. Even the MPC, you can basically choose a couple sounds, make a beat without doing much. Keep pressing play, record. This you can do the same thing though, but in order to get to the sequencer, you gotta go to the menu. In order to get to, and everything's not accessible just on the front of this. Even this is, I could just choose a couple sounds, make a sequence. I got a sequence, MPC same way. Choose a couple sounds, make a sequence. Wave state doesn't have a sequencer, so that doesn't count. RS7000 the same way. Hydrasynth doesn't have a sequencer, so it doesn't count though. But like I said, editing the sounds on this is very easy. As opposed to this, in order to edit the sounds, I have to get to a menu, and I have to really deep dive inside. There's no knob per function on this. It doesn't have any knobs. This is old school with the buttons, workstation mode. So that's pretty much how that goes. I like this better, even though it's 20 years before the Hydrasynth, but I think this is a better synth than the Hydrasynth. The key bed feels amazing. This is the expert key bed that they be talking about. Hydrasynth has good keys too though, but it's a little bit different though. Polyphonic aftertouch on this is amazing. It works mainly with this synth, and it works with my RS7000, my MPC. These other synths don't really pick up on it though, so as a controller for other synths, the Hydrasynth is good. As a controller, it's not the best. It's good, especially if your synth that is controlled and has polyphonic aftertouch, then it's definitely, changes up its usability when it comes to that situation though. So when I say which one is better, I'd say the Kurzweil is better. That's my opinion. People might think I'm crazy on that though, but that's honestly my opinion. Like I said, I only have the Explorer version, so I can't see the difference in the sonic capabilities of how it sounds. Sound is a big thing for me, not just functionality. Because, I feel like the computer has the most functionality, so that's not a priority when it comes to synths and things that I get, because I still use a computer. Sound is the most important thing, then functionality afterwards. And none of these cells function better than a computer. It might be easier, more, right here in your face, immediate, but most of these things don't function better than a computer though. So I would have to say the Kurzweil sounds better than the Hydrasynth. The Hydrasynth is easier to use. So you already know. Hope I was able to help somebody out. Jimmy Bones President, Teflon Shogun, Digital Analog. You already know how that means.